The work would begin, and it has. Already this morning, obviously meeting with senior members of my team and having spoken to a few others as we work through a timetable for the formation of government. My expectation is that we will form government within the next 2 to 3 weeks. There is precedent for governments to be formed before final counts are taken when it's clear that a mandate exists. And it is clear in this case that a mandate exists for that. So whilst it will be another 3 weeks before we have that final result, my expectation is that we will work on government formation within that time frame. I've also had the opportunity to speak this morning with the Governor-General to confirm that we have the ability to form a government as well. I've had a very brief conversation with James Shaw, acknowledging the Green Party's success overnight as well, and placing a call with Marama Davidson also. We have left it that we will speak again next week, so nothing further to report there other than that initial conversation. And obviously, as you'd expect, I've been in contact with the Labour Party President as well to discuss next steps. We'll be meeting the Labour caucus tomorrow and Tuesday, so cracking on very quickly with the work that we need to do as a new team as we continue to roll out our plan for our COVID recovery.
Jacinda Ardern, will you do a deal with the Greens, yes or no?
Oh, look, we clearly have a mandate on behalf of New Zealand to crack on with government formation. I have said that I want to talk with the Greens, and we'll do that next week. But as I say, that mandate does exist for Labour.
The upshot is you don't need them, so you
I have not said that. And everyone will have seen that I have been a consensus builder, but I also need to work with the mandate that Labour has been given as well. And I have said to the Greens that I will talk to them.
Were you in shock last night?
Would confidence and supply or memorandum of understanding arrangements still be something?
Yeah, look, I think it's fair to say that there is a range over a period of MMP governments. There have been a range of agreements. There have been confidence and supply agreements. There have been consultation agreements. I don't want to draw any conclusion at this point. What is clear is that we do have that mandate to press ahead and form government, but at the same time I have worked to build consensus over the past. But look, I do want to take the time next week to work a few things through.
Do you have enough talent within your caucus to stack a full executive?
Yes, we do. In fact, constantly the issue for me is making sure that we are using the experience we have, bringing through some of that new talent. I mean, just looking overnight, we have a range of people from the medical professional, a midwife, GP, infectious disease specialist, and that's just within health, all coming in the
Any of them ready to go straight into the ministry of your new MPs? And are you going to have to do that in terms of the positions that you're going to have to fill?
If we do that, it will be because the talent and expertise is there. And I haven't ruled out the possibility of that. For me, it will be about sitting down and making sure that we draw on both experience, but also the new talent that exists within our existing class of secretaries.
What about that 2017 intake? People like Kiri Allen, Karen McAnulty, do they be in the cabinet?
Oh, look, I'm not going to award ministerial roles here and now, but it is fair to say that we do have a very talented team of people coming into this term of government.
Would you be willing to promote someone like Aisha into a portfolio like health in her first term?
So, look, obviously a portfolio like health is a very significant one, but generally when I've been asked, I have pointed out that we have had governments form before where people have taken on roles very quickly. For me, it will be about balancing that experience and expertise we have, but also the talent that exists in our
Was last night's vote a vote for a progressive New Zealand?
Well, I think last night's vote was a vote of confidence in the plan we have around our COVID response and recovery, and to keep going. So that for me was a very clear mandate, because that is as well what was shared with me through the course of the campaign.
Given a shared vote for you and the Greens, though, is New Zealand a progressive country now?
Yeah, I'd like to think that New Zealand has always been a relatively progressive country. Even at times when you may have had a centre-right government, you still see some of those conscience issues coming through. But that's my take on it.
Have you had any contact with the Māori Party? And I mean, the seat might change potentially in specials, but if they do, would that be a party that you would look to form a relationship with, even if they're not needed?
Yeah, look, I haven't had any conversations there. You're right, there's obviously things there to be finalised and concluded. The thing that's really top of mind for me is that we do hotly contest those Māori seats with the Māori
So you'd
Party.
be
So
worried
that does.
about maybe if you formed a relationship that could compromise your Labour MPs?
I think for voters it does add some complication there. But look, as I say, we've got a very strong mandate as it is. You'll know that also, whilst I will continue to seek to be a consensus builder, I also want straightforward arrangements for this next term of office.
Prime Minister, were you on shock last night?
Do you anticipate seeing any non-Labour MPs as ministers in this term
Do
of
I,
government?
again, that feels to me like a very premature conversation. As I've indicated, very early conversations with other parties, but still a very clear mandate.
You must have been the only person in the country who wasn't in shock by those numbers last night.
Oh, look, on terms of the numbers and the outcome, the fact that we had that strong mandate, that's what we'd worked so hard for. In terms of the numbers, I think I did indicate on the night that it did exceed my expectations, so that is very fair to say.
In practical terms, what does that strong mandate mean? What legislation, what big moves are you going to want to introduce?
I think we do need to look at, what was the message that New Zealanders, particularly those New Zealanders who may have voted for Labour, who haven't done so before, what were they both endorsing and asking for? I think they were endorsing the work we've done on COVID already, and I do think they were endorsing the plan we have to go forward. There are some areas we do want to crack on with. We want to make sure that we're working on things like that flexi wage, small business loan schemes, those things that really aid our economic recovery quickly. We will need to expedite.
Are there going to be any non-COVID priorities, or what are the things in the next month that you really want to get into?
Yeah, and look, the COVID, there are a list of COVID priorities that I do want to make sure that we fulfil before the end of the year, and it is likely that we'll have a short space of house time in order to progress that. But there will be other areas where I do want to strongly signal the extra work that we want to continue on as a government. None of it will be new though, because we laid the foundations for these next 3 years in the previous.
What about timetables for things like the tax increase, the Matariki public holiday, things that you have announced that aren't actually in train yet? How quickly will you move to
well, of course, on each of those we have already indicated the starting time frame for them. So we've said, of course, with tax legislation, that as a matter of course is already predetermined. For Matariki, we've said 2022. So in that sense, that's really set out for us.
You said last night you wanted to accelerate the recovery.
Yes.
Does that mean particular projects or policies that would faster, or maybe more spending?
Yeah, look, in terms of some of those projects we've already rolled out, I do believe that there are things that we can make sure we're doing around, for instance, infrastructure delivery to make sure we're really driving some of those projects through. Equally, it is fair to say that there have been policy decisions in the past where actually we've had a very clear view on where we wanted to go. Some of our government arrangements have sometimes slowed down those policy decisions. So just that clear mandate helps us move those
So
through.
what particular things do you think you could accelerate?
Oh, well, for instance, previously there have been very different opinions within government on things like the business loan scheme. That will be an example where we can just crack on now with getting that rolled out for our small businesses.
What's your message to Winston Peters, now obviously out of Parliament?
But I think he's left a huge legacy, and I absolutely believe that. And regardless of whether or not New Zealanders have voted for him in the past or their view on him, I think most of us would agree he has given his life in service to politics in New Zealand. And I think that for me commands my respect.
Do you see New Zealand First surviving without him?
That's not really a question I've given too much thought to. Really, my thought has been to the people I've worked with, because you can't work with a party for 3 years and not get to know people, and I've worked with some very good people.
Will you run in 2023?
I just run in 2020. Haven't yet taken a weekend. I'm enjoying this moment, and look, we all run in order to maintain momentum and support for our parties, and we carry that for as long as we can. Of course, that is my job, coming into the next 3 years.
And are you trying to those listings down the end of the list that perhaps you hadn't anticipated bringing in?
No, actually, we anticipated. Of course, what's interesting is we anticipated perhaps having that number of listing fees. What's interesting, of course, is we've had a number of seats turn. So in some cases, some people we might have expected to come in on the list won't, because of those seats that have come in.
Prime Minister, you must have had a lot of people around the world getting in touch with you. Are there any
that stick out in your mind?
Oh, I have had a few lovely messages. Scott Morrison was very quick off the bat last night, but also reminded me of our wager today on the rugby. I've had the Prime Minister of Denmark, Pedro Sanchez from Spain, of course Boris Johnson reached out as well.
Donald Trump,
Justin Trudeau. I don't tend to have those direct communications with the President of the United States.
I mean, there is a lot of people in the US though that are seeing this election coming up and looking to you as an example. Is there anything that you would say to them?
Oh, no, other people's democracies are for them, but my hope as someone who has, of course, a strong interest in politics is that we have elections globally where we try and move beyond the divisive nature that elections can sometimes bring, because that can be damaging for democracy, regardless of the side of the house that you sit on.
On the cannabis case, will there be any sort of response from central government on that? Are there any settings that you need to train?
At this stage, from the case that we've announced today, there's nothing to suggest the need to move any of the restriction levels. That's of course because this is an individual that was already considered to be working in a high-risk area, hence the fact that they've been tested multiple times routinely. And also, whilst we haven't identified which ship and international crew precisely they've been in contact with, we have of course a strong probability around it.
Are you confident there's enough testing going on at the ports?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, this individual, as I understand, was already tested as part of routine testing 4 times.
And when did?
And so he was within between cycles of his testing regime, and was due to be tested again on Friday. So actually, it is an example of the system working.
And when you government find out, and could you have informed the public sooner?
No, I'm absolutely confident that we've done everything as we would usually do here. I'm told by the Minister of Health that he was informed at 11 minutes past 6 p.m. last night by the Director General of Health. Our usual practice in a case like this would be that it would be part of 1 p.m. reporting, as is per usual.
On the cannabis referendum, given your reason for not disclosing your vote beforehand is that you didn't want to influence voters, and there are no voters left to influence, what's the reason for not sharing with the public now other than political self-interest?
That would be if I was not going to share it at all, which I will.
Why not share now?
Oh, because it feels like it'll be tidy to do it at the time that we announce the decision and the outcome.
Couldn't you then just be accused of picking a winner at that point?
No, not at all, because I may be on the losing side.
I
will be. The question is, will I be honest about what I voted? Of course I will.
Prime Minister can't influence the vote, so just tell us
the
now.
legislation. So you've got this obviously a Labour majority, the Greens. What is your? Do you still commit to enacting that draft legislation if there is a yes vote?
Draft legislation?
The cannabis legislation.
Absolutely, and that was something I was very, very clear on. I wanted New Zealanders to have confidence that regardless of personal views, we would implement the outcome that New Zealand asked for, and we absolutely will. And I'm obviously confident because both the Labour Party and the Green Party have committed to implementing whatever the outcome of the referendum.
Prime Minister, just back on Winston Peters, would you be open to offering him a diplomatic posting?
I've given no such consideration to anything like that at this stage. And nor is he the kind of person that would do that either. But again, we're only a matter of hours from him having had that outcome. I think now would be the time for us to at least pay homage to the role that he's played in New Zealand.
How about a valedictory?
I think there's a number of ambassadors to the north.
How about a valedictory for Winston?
I hope there will be some way that can be delivered. You know, I think that was a loss for a previous party leader. I understand, of course, Peter Dunn had that similar experience, and I think that we lose something when we don't have that opportunity. While strictly speaking, there won't be a way to do that in a parliamentary environment. I'd like to find a way that can be done in another form.
Can I ask how Foreign Affairs is operating at the moment? Can I ask how Foreign Affairs operates at the moment? Is he interim? Were you appointed interim
So there's
Foreign
a
Affairs?
period that even if someone isn't elected as a member of parliament, that they operate for a period as a minister.
And you're comfortable with him continuing to?
Look, that's the arrangement that we've always had. But you run a special form of arrangement.
Given he's on the role of Right Honourables, would you expect that he would be offered, or you would offer him a knighthood?
This is none of those decisions are ever publicly disclosed until the date that things are announced. and nor would I discuss any of those things
You've
publicly.
spoken
it's
to
an
him since the
overwhelming-
result last night.
I haven't, but I have sent him a quick message, and I do intend to speak to him
Has he
sometime
replied to your
soon.
message?
I wouldn't expect him to if it was in a relatively short time
And now
frame
that you've got
as
this overwhelming mandate, will you reconsider measures to address inequality like the capital gains tax?
well. Oh, well, that implies that we haven't been taking on measures to address inequality already. We have, and we will continue
Will you
to.
reconsider a capital
No,
gains tax?
I was very clear on my position on that, and I'm sticking to my
Well,
position.
so you last
question,
If you don't want to scare voters that have turned to Labour, as you just said, does that mean you're not going to deviate
Well,
much?
those weren't my words, but sorry,
Does that mean you
continue.
don't want to deviate much from your manifesto in this term?
Well, you asked me yesterday if we would be implementing our manifesto, and my response was absolutely. You know, obviously we have a mandate to implement that manifesto. There will always be issues that will come up over the course of a term in office where voters will expect us to respond, both with policy and direction and sometimes legislation, and we will do that as
Can I
well.
just ask you about
Okay.
Ihumato, obviously a roadblock before the election. Is that something that you could very quickly get on and
I've
deal
always
with?
said that I was hopeful that we would find a conclusion and a result that satisfies all of those issues around treaty issues and ownership and
it's
of
one
course on
barrier removed,
features.
effectively.
And look, and my hope remains the same, that we will do that. But again, I haven't managed to in the last 12 hours.
Did you get to sleep in this morning?
No, I was up dealing with COVID. All right, thank you
Can we talk to
everyone.
Chris about that?
Sure.